Well, hi, everybody. My name is Jose Cordero, and I'm with my colleague Jim Davis, and we're here to walk you guys through the registration process for classes at Oceanside High School. And we're hoping this presentation will be helpful for you. It's a beginner's course on the registration process, and we are always available for questions and answers after this if you have them. There's a lot in this presentation that we can't share just for time's sake, but it is all relevant information to get you started and to help you through your process in registering your student for classes at Oceanside High School. Jim and I have met with your students both as a large group and in their classes at the middle school recently, so they have gotten this information and they will be bringing home a green registration form to you for you to sign and for you to fill out. We'll be talking about that through the presentation, but we are hoping that you have that conversation with your students and that this information will be helpful for you to have that conversation. And there will be plenty of opportunities in the future for us to connect and for you to be supported through this process. And you're not alone in this, and we're here to help. So let's get started. Feel free to pause the video if you need to read the slides more, or fast forward if you've already been introduced to the information, but we'll get started. So first of all, this is a big screen with lots of information, and we want a little bit of the big picture to frame the context for registering for ninth grade classes because it is important. And I just want to go over this briefly. It has been a recent addition to our graduation policy for ninth graders and all students coming in after this year to earn 22 total credits to graduate. In previous years, it's been 24. Those total credits really isn't that big of a deal for those folks coming in as ninth graders to worry about at this point, but it is something that we need to make sure you know about. The 22 credits minimum for graduation is often exceeded by our students, and it is a goal to shoot for, and most times students don't even realize that they've gone beyond it. If you take and pass all your classes, you'll be just fine. But Oceanside does have a credit system and grading system that is different from the middle school. We'll talk about a little bit of that through the presentation. But the overall credits for graduation are lined up here in the subjects that are required. On the left, the core subject requirements are listed: 4 credits or 4 years of English, 3 credits or 3 years of science, 3 credits of math, 3 credits of social studies. We'll go into detail on those. And on the right side are the other requirements for subjects that are 1 credit each: visual performing arts, world language, health, and physical education. Those are all the subject requirements for graduation, but they don't add up to 22. And we'll get to that in a minute. But those are the subject requirements and the total credit requirements for graduation.
So your typical core classes, this chart, as the other one, there's a lot of information on it, but on the left-hand side, you'll see a typical ninth grade pathway for core classes. So for English, for example, students taking English 9, or they take Honors English 9. And in social studies, world history is the curriculum. So students take world history or honors world history. And the same with science. It's either earth science or an honors earth science. Without getting deeply, the curriculums are very similar between honors and general. Obviously, an honors class goes at a faster pace. Work is a little bit more difficult. Probably the expectation for homework, there's probably more homework in an honors level class. We're hoping a lot of students are ready for Algebra 1 And actually, a lot of the math teachers at the middle school will help your child decide which math that they are ready for. Some students taking Algebra 1 this year will be ready to take geometry as a ninth grader. Those pathways continue through grade 10 and 11. And as you recall, it's the English is a required subject once every 4 years, where the credits in social studies, science, and math are 3 credits. So it allows in the 12th grade, things loosen up a little bit, and there's a little more room for flexibility. You notice there's a big X in the 12th grade social studies. So assuming students took government in their 11th grade year, they don't have to take a social studies in 12th grade, but there are social studies electives when they're a senior. In a similar fashion with science and math, students may not be required, in a sense, to take a credit of those 2 classes as a 12th grader, but they do have to have what's considered an experience, which means they need to take a course, even if they've met the graduation requirement. But it could be a semester-based course. It could be a full year course if that's their place of interest. It could be a course that's been approved as an experience at Midcoast School of Technology. So that'll obviously become clearer as your student becomes older and an 11th or 12th grader.
So we talked about the core course requirements: English, math, social studies, and science. The other pieces that are required for graduation as far as subjects are listed here. Physical education is a 1 credit requirement for graduation, and that can be done at any time during the 4 years. The same with health, and the same with world or foreign language. However, because they can be done at any time, and because the credit requirements are a lot less than 4 and 3, students have the flexibility to go and take those when they can, or kick them down the road, as we say. But we highly suggest that students take as many of these required courses as early as possible. It opens up space later on in their years here to take other classes that might be a more pertinent preparation for a career path or a college path after high school. And it gives them room to prepare for more rigorous coursework. And like Mr. Davis said, maybe even an experience at MCST, the Midcoast School of Technology, or other things that could take up a lot of space in their schedules as upperclassmen. So getting these smaller credit requirements out of the way is a great way to do that. Help them prepare for those later years. Also, too, even though it's ninth grade, it still is the time when we need to start thinking about those future plans. Mr. Davis and I meet with students all the time and help them project out those 4 years and after, so that we can help give them guidance on what classes and what sequence of classes might best prepare them for that future goal. And if they are at all thinking of a 4-year college or university experience after high school, many of those, if not all of those colleges, would require a minimum of 2 years of a world language, even though our graduation requirement is only 1 year. And even more than that, if it's a competitive college or university, Bates, Bowdoin, or Colby maybe as an example, they might require 3 or 4 to be competitive, 3 or 4 years of a world language. So even though the high school requirements are X, depending on the goal in mind, the requirements for that goal might be X plus 4. They might be quite a bit more. And so planning those out early is really a good idea. And so the world language is the beginning of what could be a 4-year plan in world languages. Likewise, if they're planning on going to the Midcoast School of Technology, There's a great class called CTE Exploratory that can help a ninth grader or a 10th grader determine which program at Midcoast might be best for them. And that is an example of an elective requirement at Oceanside. There are several credits that fill up the rest of those 22 overall credits, and we call those electives. And here are a list on the right of some of those electives that could fulfill that other requirement. Of course, taking above and beyond in any of the core subject areas would work as electives. For instance, there is a creative writing class in the English department. Even though it's an English class, which is a core requirement, creative writing isn't necessarily the specific subject that's required, but it would count for an elective credit. And we highly recommend that students choose the courses that they're passionate for and they wish to excel more in wherever they can. So whether it's a Midcoast School of Technology preparation in CTE Exploratory, or creative writing in English, or even in the visual and performing arts. That was my passion in high school. I went well above and beyond the minimums because I was very involved with the music program. So we highly encourage students to take band and choir as many years as they wish. That'll fulfill the visual arts 1 credit requirement and will help them with their elective credits after that. So there's lots of options for students to choose and go above and beyond where they can and where they're passionate. And this is just another example of how that might look in a 9th grade schedule. 1 credit of English, ELA 9 in this case is the choice. But again, like Mr. Davis said, it could be an honors ELA 9, English 9. And that's a choice that the student can make with you as a parent, hopefully supporting that choice. And the student is, well, when we visited the middle school, we definitely encourage your students to visit their current teachers and their current school counselor, Mr. Nick, to get those decisions made with plenty of information and recommendations from their current teachers. This particular schedule, the student is in math, but again, there could be an honors level that a student could choose depending on their teacher's recommendation. This earth science is the specific science required for 9th graders. Again, either earth science or honors earth science. And for social studies is world history or honors world history. So that's the 4 core credits. Those are kind of stuck in stone. You get the choice of what level. On the right, those other 1 credit requirements are beginning to roll out for the student. World language, they chose Spanish. They chose the 1 credit of physical education, which is good to kind of get done. And this particular student chose the CTE Exploratory class, which is an actual 2 credit experience. So if they had CTE, then they're done. Those are the 8 credits that every freshman needs to have. You could also substitute the CTE course for band and health. This is an example of how to mix. You know, if you want one, you might have to take out some in order to meet the 8 credit requirement for the 9th grade schedule. So if you have 8 and you want a 9th credit, that's not going to work. You have to take something out to put in that 8th credit. So those are where the choices come in. How does it work best for you? And of course, if you have questions and you're not sure how that combination would fit together, we'll be glad to walk you through that process.
This is a copy of the course request form for your students. They received this in class just the other day, Monday, and it's green in case you haven't seen it yet. So basically what students are going to do right down the middle is they're going to make a list of the courses that they want to take. So for English, obviously it's either honors ELA 9 or just English 9. Same with world history. It's either honors or world history. Same with earth science. It's either honors or earth science. Math, they'll get help with their math teacher for best placement. It's hopefully it's most likely Algebra 1, but it might be Algebra 1A, which is a math class that moves at a bit of a slower pace. And once again, those 4 classes cover the 4 core that Mr. Cordero mentioned. And then after that, they have a lot of options. Similar to the previous slide, phys ed, health, visual or performing arts, and foreign language. Those are common 4 choices for the other 4 courses, but they can mix and match. For an example I brought up the other day with the kids, if a student's really into music and they took band, but they also want to take chorus, as Mr. Cordero mentioned, they might have to take something out. So that's their choice if they overload on one thing to take something out. So they could take health out or phys ed or foreign language. It's kind of their choice. In the middle section on the bottom, that's for some backup classes to take in case something gets overbooked. The core classes really won't get overloaded, but there is always a slight chance some of the extra elective type classes could get overloaded, possibly an art class. So if they request an art class, they might want to put a backup art class in the middle section. At the bottom, there's a place for a student and parent signature. And then what they're going to do toward the end of April, I believe April 29th is exactly when this happens. Students will enter this into their laptop on PowerSchool and turn these green sheets, I believe, into their 8th grade homeroom teacher. And those green sheets will actually end up with us eventually. But by the end of April, all this data should be inputted, and then it helps us move on from there. That's you.
Yeah, I was on mute. We're going to shift a little bit to talk about the daily schedule. When we spoke to the middle school students, it was clear that this was a very big area of stress to think about. And so we wanted to make sure to give this some time. Our schedule is also 8 periods like the middle school, but we're in a block schedule. We have 4 periods on a white day, let's say, and another 4 on a blue day. So students won't have English every day or math every day. They'll have it every other day. And the placement of those classes in those periods is really kind of random. It's nothing that they're going to have all their core academics on one day and electives on another. That's not how it works at the high school. So it'll be a mix and match. And I'll just go through briefly about some of the things that stick out in our schedule for times. The TL time from 8:55 to 9:35 is kind of like a homeroom. It's also known as advisor. That's a time where a student is in a class with their teacher, their advisor. There's no lecture or subject taught during that time, but it is a time for them to catch up on work, catch up with teachers. That's a time where teachers could tag a student. It's a notification system here at the high school. The student would get a notification on their iPad that they have been tagged by a teacher. And that means the teacher might need to see them for an academic reason. Maybe the student was sick and they need to make up a test. So the teacher will tag them during TL, and the student would leave and go to see that teacher to make up that exam. So you'll hear students talking about being tagged for TL, and that's how that works. It's a way for teachers to kind of make sure that their students come for extra help, for test redos and things like that. We have a 3-period lunch during 3rd period, and the subjects are broken up by those lunches. So if a student has English during 3rd period but has first lunch, they'll go from 2nd period to lunch to English for 3B and English for 3C. If they have second lunch, they'll do English, lunch, English. And if they had third lunch, they'll do English lunch. It's it sticks after a few times. They'll get used to it, and then of course the blue day or the next day they might have a different lunch period. It helps keep them active. It's not repetitious by any means in terms of the same thing happening every day. It's definitely a lot of diversity in the scheduling, and students really like that. The day ends at 2 o'clock. The day begins at 7:30. And that's pretty much it. It works well, but it is quite different from the 8 periods every day that the middle school students have.
So community service, just to touch our feet in this a little bit. Community service is a graduation requirement. It's required that students over the course of 4 years earn 50 hours of community service. There are tons of ways to do this. This will become clearer to them when they get into high school. There will be presentations about this. But on the left-hand side, there's examples. On occasion, there are weekend campus cleanups, beautification activities, maybe throughout some of the towns in the community. There's blood drives that are sponsored over the years, fundraising for nonprofit groups, and something that a lot of our student athletes have been involved in, especially younger kids have been to sports camps and things like that with older students at the high school helping to coach. And now that they're entering high school, it's their time to pay back and do some community service and uh, help coach and help out with some of the youth athletic teams. So all those things can happen. Um, Hopefully, by the time they're a sophomore, they've earned 5 hours of community service. To be considered a sophomore, they should also have earn 6 credits during their freshman year. They'll be taking 8 credits worth of classes. So there's a little wiggle room in case they have some academic difficulty. Um, and those numbers go up each year. To be a junior, they should be up to 15 hours of community service and 12 credits and etc. All those credits and hours of community service are very, very attainable. And as I said, uh, some of those experiences will become available to them as they go through school.
And speaking of being involved, we always encourage students to get involved outside the classroom as much as possible. Freshman year, ninth grade year can be challenging. One of the biggest challenges statistically that we find with students, if they do have challenges, it's because it's difficult. It might be difficult to be part of a social group, to find your social group. And so we want to encourage them to reach out and take that step, take that risk, maybe do something they never have tried before, maybe continue to do something that they love, but be involved with something. Find your troop. And these are some of the more popular ways to be involved at Oceanside High School, among others. So if your student is thinking about being involved, we definitely want to encourage them to take that step and continue that involvement. Or if they've never been involved, to see about participating in something new. And this doesn't necessarily have to happen right away. Sometimes students need to get their feet firmly planted in their academics first before they'll step out into something extracurricular, and we totally support that. But at the same time, we do think that's a huge advantage in being successful as an academic student as well as a social student here at Oceanside. So if you have questions about any of these activities, how to be involved, please come see us at the Student Services Office and we can get students hooked up. And here are some more activities as well, among others. And if a student doesn't see something on this list that they would really like to see, we encourage them to start their own club. Several students have done that over the past, and we encourage that to continue. leaving a legacy at Oceanside is always something special. And every now and then a student would start something and it would continue beyond them after they've left. And that's a really cool thing to happen. So if there are things that students want to do that they don't see here, we encourage them to start something new. And last, a simple piece of advice to be successful here at Oceanside is to attend school and participate the best you can in your academics, to speak up, to ask questions. We as school counselors are going to be meeting with them throughout their 4 years of high school and getting to know them and building relationships with them and hopefully helping them and guide them through their 4 years here and beyond. Part of that is us keeping track of their progress through high school, helping them understand their 4-year plan as it changes, because it will change, and how those classes will impact their future. There's a way that they can track that themselves through PowerSchool. It's a really cool feature called Graduation Plan Progress. If you haven't seen it as a parent, it's a really neat visual to see them completing requirements along the way. I love the visuals, and it's really helpful for me as a school counselor to sit down with a student and show them their progress on the screen. It helps them see their hard work paying off towards that end goal. And that's really helpful for them to feel like they're making that progress, because sometimes education progress is long term. It's hard to see the payoffs sometimes because it takes a while to earn those credits and to get those grades. But the graduation plan progress is definitely something that helps in our work with the students as they progress. And we want you to feel free to reach out to us with questions or concerns, or if you have suggestions, or if you want us to know your student a little better, give us some tips and tricks about how to work with them best. That's always encouraged. You can reach out to us via email or phone. You can come in to meet us here at the Student Services office at the high school. Sue Snow is our registrar. She is wonderful. She has a lot of history here at the school and can help guide students as well. And there are many other resources here in the main office and throughout the building that we encourage you to reach out and ask questions of. There'll be a day in June where students will come to the high school for a step-up day to see the building, to navigate, hopefully feel a little bit more comfortable. And then finally, there'll be a day, the first day of school. In the fall, they'll come and it will only be 9th graders in the building for that day. So they'll have a chance to walk around with their schedule, find their classes, and feel comfortable before the upperclassmen arrive. With that, I would just like to say thank you for reaching out and following us through the presentation, and thank you for supporting your child through what will now be a high school education. We look forward to working with them and you in the future, and we will always be here for you if you need help.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, and I look forward to meeting you folks, and a major shout out to Nick Satriglia and the 8th grade teachers at the middle school who have been super helpful to us with this process and helpful to your kids through this process. So thank you very much.